All right, let's dive into a story of digital breadcrumbs and unbelievably high-stakes finance. We're not just looking at a crime here, we're looking at a hidden pattern, a web of financial transactions so huge, so sprawling, it has the power to shift global politics. This is the story of the pattern. So picture this. Our story doesn't start in some high-tech command center. Nope, it begins in a quiet apartment in Berlin, rain hammering the windows. A government analyst, a guy named Max Vogel, is just staring at his screen, and he's about to stumble onto something that will change, well, everything. And this is the absolute key to understanding this whole thing. See, Max isn't looking at some simple fraud case. What he's found is this incredibly sophisticated network. We're talking shell companies, offshore accounts, all being used to secretly shuffle money around for some of the most powerful people on the planet. It's organized, it's deliberate, and it is massive. So this discovery immediately raises a couple of huge questions, right? First, where exactly does this trail of money lead? And maybe more importantly, what does it mean when a hidden financial network like this can operate completely outside the lines, beyond the reach of any government or law? Okay, so let's properly meet the man at the center of this storm, Max Vogel. He's a sharp, dedicated analyst, you know the type, a real believer in the system he works for. But as he's about to find out, some secrets, they're really better left buried. While the city outside is winding down for the night, Max is completely oblivious. He's just lost, staring at a screen that holds a secret so dangerous it could literally shake up the world order. For him, the night is just getting started. You know, this isn't just a file he can close out and deal with in the morning. The data, the connections he's making, the terrifying implications of it all, they've followed him right into his home, into his life, and they are not about to let go. So how in the world did he even find this? Okay, let's back up a second and trace his steps. We're going to follow the money, just like he did, and see how he decoded this whole hidden network, piece by piece. It all started with just 3 transactions. 3, that's it. On the surface, they looked like nothing, just tiny blips from an oligarch named Volkov. But Max had this gut feeling, it was like a loose thread on a sweater, and he knew he had to pull it. He was right. That thread, it unraveled everything. Now, the real genius of this whole operation was how they hid it in plain sight. Here's how they did it. Millions of euros were disguised as boring old consultation fees. More cash was funneled through fake philanthropic donations. Then, to make it all look legit, they used that money to buy up real estate through shell companies, which are basically ghost companies that only exist on paper to hide who really owns the money. It's a classic, but incredibly effective playbook for moving dark money. And once he pulled on those first 3 threads, man, the whole web just exploded. Max went from 3 transactions to dozens, then hundreds. We're talking millions of euros just sloshing around this shadow financial system, flowing right through accounts that were supposed to be frozen solid by international sanctions. The scale of it was just breathtaking. And this is where it gets absolutely wild. The money trail was undeniable. Funds starting in Volkov's network were being funneled through those ghost companies, and they had very clear destinations. Some of it ended up with entities connected to the Kremlin, and other streams, unbelievably, led to entities linked with Mar-a-Lago. You have 2 geopolitical opposites connected by the exact same flow of dark money. And just like that, what looked like a bunch of random chaotic data points, they all clicked into place. This wasn't chaos. This was a carefully coordinated conspiracy, a pattern with a very specific, and it turns out a very dangerous purpose. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why go to all this trouble? What is the endgame for moving all this money around in the shadows? The answer is what kept Max Vogel staring at his screen all night.
This was it, the horrifying realization that finally dawned on him. A huge, publicly celebrated peace deal that the entire world was watching. It wasn't the real goal. It was a distraction. It was just a cover for the real operation.
And here's the bombshell. Every single one of those transactions, every shell company, every laundered euro, it was all designed for one single purpose: to secretly influence, manipulate, and ultimately control the outcome of the Ukrainian peace negotiations. The stakes just went from financial crime to, well, global security. So, uncovering the pattern, that was the analytical challenge. Now, Max is staring down a much bigger, much more human one. What on earth do you do with this kind of information? The weight of the world is suddenly on his shoulders. He's basically looking at two choices, and frankly, they both stink. Path 1, he files an official report. He's a professional, he trusts the system. But he also knows a report this explosive would get buried so deep in bureaucratic red tape, it would never see the light of day. Or, path 2, he leaks the story. He goes outside the system, but by doing that, he's risking his career, his freedom, maybe even his life.
Just think about that for a second. Put yourself in his shoes. The safe route, where the truth gets buried, or the incredibly dangerous path, where it might actually get out. What would you do?
So as Max is wrestling with this impossible choice, another piece of the puzzle just clicks into place. A potential third option, a name, a potential ally. In a world this tangled up in lies and shadows, where governments themselves are involved, this is the single most important question, right? Who could you possibly trust with something this big? The answer, remarkably, comes from inside the data itself. A name, Chen, an American journalist. And get this, she isn't just some random reporter he looked up online. Max found her name buried deep inside one of the intercepted financial documents. She's already part of the pattern, whether she knows it yet or not. Now think about what that means for a second. Her name being in those files, that's no accident. It means someone else, somewhere on the inside of this conspiracy, knows what's going on. And they were trying to leave a breadcrumb, trying to point her toward the truth. And that is the decision that lands squarely on Max's shoulders. Someone else started this trail of breadcrumbs. Now he has to decide if he's the one who's going to complete it, if he's going to become the whistleblower this whole fragile situation desperately needs. Which leaves us with this powerful, kind of twisted paradox. To protect the very ideals his country is supposed to stand for, things like justice and peace, Max might have to betray the very institutions he swore to serve. It's a conflict that sits at the very heart of the story. So I'll ask again, what would you do in his shoes?